All right, welcome back, folks, to episode 4 of Yankees Unloaded. I'm Jake Ellenbogen. Joining me, as always, is my co-host Gary Sheffield Jr. And today we're going to get you guys ready for the Yankees regular season. A lot of stuff to cover. Really excited about it. Some good, some not so good. But with every disappointment, I guess there's always an opportunity hidden in there. There's always a silver lining. And, we talked about it last time, not last week. I was on vacation, but we talked about it last episode, Gary. And I have to say, it sucks with the whole thing with Garrett Cole, but I'm very excited to see Luis Gil, man. I've texted you that. I've been pounding the stump for this guy. He's been pitching very well. And I understand it's not the end all be all in spring training. But it's the best we can work with right now. It's the best, barometer essentially to let you know where a guy is based on what we're given. So I'm excited for Gil, but let's kick it off because Aaron Boone named him the 5th starter, and now the Yankees have a full rotation for better or for worse.
Yeah, what's nice about it is that we had some balls for once. Like, we actually named somebody. Classic Yankees would have been, we're going to spot start somebody. We're going to put in a Clayton Beeter. We're going to throw in a heel. We're going to throw in somebody else and maybe an opener. I was tired of that. And I know you were tired of it. We did this. I don't know if of course you remember it. In the postseason where we said we were throwing a lefty and then we went out and threw Garcia as an opener. In the postseason, at least there was no one there to watch it during COVID. So there's the silver lining. But in all seriousness, I'm just happy that the Yankees and Aaron Boone specifically is making a decision about going all in on somebody. And if someone else earns that spot, they'll take that role from them. And I'm cool with that. But as long as we're not doing this, it's all hands on deck. Garrett Cole's not here. So we're just going to figure out what we're doing. We're putting some confidence in some young guys. And I do think people are forgetting that Gil was a power arm that pitched phenomenal at the big league level before he got hurt. So now that he's healthy and ready to go, if he has his command, which has always been the issue with him, is walks, we're going to be pretty good and in good hands at least. So all I'm hoping for is that he keeps us in games. His stuff should play. And if Clayton Beeter, who made the roster, we actually just talked about this before we actually went on air. So it's like, if he's making the roster and he's who they say he is, the Yankees shouldn't have an issue with their rotation. But again, it's a lot of ifs, so we'll see.
We'll definitely see. I think, looking at this, they had opportunities bringing up, Will Warren. They chose not to. Clearly, he's not ready, and that's okay. They had an opportunity. You mentioned Clayton Beeter. They had an opportunity to go out and sign somebody that's not very good, but just to sign somebody, right? And they're going with, Gil here, who, I mean, let's be honest here. He's been through the ringer with injuries. So it's nice to see him overcome, some of that and, get back here. And we'll see what ends up happening with him. I think really just the spring that he had, especially, I'm sure they're fantasy baseball, people watching. The spring he had makes him almost kind of a sneaky option if you're playing fantasy baseball. I think he's going to be somebody that, and obviously he won't be entirely slept on. He plays for the New York Yankees. The 5th star on the New York Yankees is way more popular than, say, maybe the 2nd starter on the Pirates.
Nerds don't let anyone be slept on. We just don't let it happen.
But I mean, hey, I'm excited to see him work. I think, you saw that one game in particular, he had 8 strikeouts in, and you're like, huh, okay. And you think about it, and he's 25 years old. This is the beauty. And this is kind of a reminder why you don't just give up on prospects. Okay. They could have packaged him as a throwaway. Instead, they waited, and there was there were offers about him, and they waited, even though this guy, so they let other guys go that might have been as good, maybe not quite, but were healthy, in favor of not moving on from him when he wasn't healthy, because they believe in whatever he brings to the table. And to be honest with you, there are times where, the Yankees operate in a way that you would think, okay, you got to trust him here. They clearly see something. And how many times have we been like, all right, I don't think they really saw something. And I just think maybe they were just maybe they were delusional. I don't know. This is not one of those cases, Gary. I think Gil is in for. I think he's going to be really good. I really believe he can end up being kind of that savior, if you will, when Cole is out. And then I think he's going to offer, an uncomfortable discussion to have for the Yankees. When Cole comes back, a good discussion you want to have. It means that you have too many guys. I think he's going to give them a really tough out here where if he pitches well enough, like Clark Schmidt, you better have your act together, or, who knows? I mean, maybe Rodon at that point. Hopefully not, but we don't know. He's somebody that I think getting him the experience, but also realizing like, look, this guy is pitching well in the only place he can pitch right now. I think it brings definitely some good vibes for the future. And the Yankees know it's going to have to be their offense. This pitching staff is not going to go out there and absolutely bury teams. Okay. It's not going to be like in the past, but if they're solid, then that, even a 6-run, performance will be good enough. It should be good enough.
Yeah. You know what I actually think is going to happen, in my opinion, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm sure our listeners will also have an opinion on this. I believe that Clark Schmidt doesn't have big game pitcher 1, 2, or 3 in the rotation potential. I don't see it. Okay. That doesn't mean I don't think he's a good pitcher in Major League Baseball. I think he could be a very good 4 or 5, but I think Luis Gil presents a ceiling that's much higher than Clark Schmidt. So that said, if Luis Gil pitches well, what I see is Schmidt going into the bullpen the way we saw Michael King last year. Michael King was put in a position to throw multiple innings. We obviously got rid of him in getting Juan Soto, a great move for the Yankees. I thought it was the perfect move for the New York Yankees. Great move from Brian Cashman. So we have to give him credit, but we lost something. Now, what we lost happens to be something that Clark Schmidt can replace. Doesn't have to be an all-star level pitcher, but we need innings. And if you have a guy who's built up to be a starter, and you think Luis Gil is a better arm potentially than Clark Schmidt, and he's pitching like it, well, Clark Schmidt can move to the bullpen and he can eat up some of those innings, especially if we deal with any injuries, which I'm sure we will. We see Rodon, we see Cole, we see Marcus Stroman, who usually gives us 140 innings. Someone somewhere is going to miss starts, and that's when Clark Schmidt can step in and open games, go 4 or 5 innings and make sense of it. But if I'm a betting man, and I'm not, but if I was, I would say the Yankees they're essentially putting everything, all their chips to the center of the table with somebody that they see potential in to be a actual middle of the rotation guy. And so I'm buying in to Luis Gil. That's just what I'm doing.
Yeah, and apparently that's how you say his name, because I did not know that. I've watched him play baseball and I never picked up on it being Heel. Or maybe it's Hill. I don't know.
Yeah, well, when you walk 4 or 5 guys, I mean, that's just what happens. People are going to say your name wrong. But like always, if you perform well, especially in New York, people are going to get your name right. It'll happen.
Yeah. Well, I'm kind of obsessive about getting names right, so I'll be calling him Heel from now on.
Jake will never forget this again. YouTube.
No. Nope. Yeah, I mean, that's just how I am. And I mean, I go through it every year. NFL draft. Everyone has all sorts of wacky names. You bet your ass I'm going to remember every single one of those weird pronunciations. So I just wanted to bring up real quick, because people are like probably sitting there, if they haven't, watched any spring training, which I understand it is a little early. Not everybody is interested in spring training. I'm not going to hold it against you. But if you haven't watched, Heel has had a really good spring training, 15 2/3 in the Grapefruit League, 5 games, 3 starts, 5 runs allowed. So that's a 2.87 ERA, 7 hits, walking 6, striking out, team leading 23 strikeouts.
Oh yeah.
So
team leader. Let's go.
Team leader. And look, you and I aren't sitting here like, oh, we need a power pitcher. There has to be a strikeout guy. Like, the fact that Garrett Cole's gone, we're not sitting there like we need a 300 strikeout guy.
Right.
But I'm not against one.
There's a reason
I mean,
everyone's trying to strike guys out. Like there's a reason we gave Rodon 160 million dollars was because he could strike players out. He might have 2 pitches, but those 2 pitches are sending guys back to the dugout. That's the whole point. So strikeouts, we're hunting strikeouts for a reason, and people need to remember that.
so I thought this was interesting. I checked out Baseball Reference and before we, recorded this, and I don't know how accurate this is going to be, but I thought it was interesting because they have projections for 2024, which I don't remember that being the case, but they have them for Gil, and they have him going 3-3 with a 4.35 ERA, 2 saves, and a 1.31 WHIP. I'm not going to lie to you, 62 strikeouts. I would take that as a 5th starter. Like, I would take that. Now, I think he's going to be better than that, right? But that projection is just kind of bizarre to me. Like the 2 saves in there, like I don't think that's what's going to happen. But if he has a 4.35 ERA as the 5th starter, then you have to assume everyone else above him has a better ERA, right? Because why would he be the 5th starter at that point? We've had this discussion before. I feel like you would take that as well.
I would, and then also that kind of tells me that. I mean, doesn't that tell me that Clark Schmidt's doing something? Because one of those 2 guys is coming out of the rotation.
Innings, by the way, that's what they're projecting.
Yes, which tells me he's probably an opener. That's what they're projecting, right? If Garrett Cole does come back in 2 months, then Luis Gil would be coming out and he would be pitching probably 3 or 4 innings, and then they go to the bullpen. And we've seen that before. We've seen them do it with him. We actually saw it before his injury. They were bringing him out there, and they would pull him in the 3rd or 4th inning. The Yankees have done this in the past. Matt Blake has done this in the past. So I love to look at recent history as a way to predict. I think that projection is pretty realistic. I'm not even going to say whether or not I think he'll beat it or if he will fall short of that projection. All I know is I will take those innings. I will take those strikeouts.
Yeah, I mean, 6 games. What is that? You're talking Cole be back by then? Well, that's 6 decisions too. So it doesn't say how
that's
many.
Probably about. Oh yeah, yes. They're projecting that he'll be in the bullpen is what that projection seems like. So,
yeah, I don't know. That's the thing. I don't know how real. Like, I don't know if this is accumulating for the idea that he's the 5th starter. Let's just say it is, and he goes 3-3 and strikes out 62 in 60 innings, and I think that's fine. I think if you can, as long as he keeps the ERA below 4.5, I would say the WHIP could be better. I'm not going to say it couldn't, but
realistic again though. Still realistic because we're saying that he's had problems with walks. So I'm not going to be shocked if his WHIP isn't under 1 or close to 1. I'm expecting him to be a guy who does not have problems striking guys out, but you're going to see a couple 2-out walks and then come off the field, frustrating walks, something that Garrett Cole, aces in Major League Baseball find a way to avoid. Yes, it's not everybody who can avoid that. And there's a reason for it. There's a reason everyone's not paid $300 million. Although you'll see a guy throw 100 and hit the corner with a slider and have a wipeout changeup. What is the difference? The difference is this. They don't know how to basically put away innings clean.
Yeah.
And so that's what I see out of Luis Gil.
Yeah. I mean, he's pitched 2021. He went 3-3. Or they went 3-3. He went 1-1. He pitched a 6-inning game. First game ever, actually. That was
shutout, wasn't it?
Yeah, his major league debut, he had 6 strikeouts, 4 hits, a shutout. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And he it doesn't look like he allowed a walk. No, he had 1 walk. Okay. Then the next one, he had 5 innings pitched. This is back in 2021. 2 hits, 2 walks, 8 strikeouts, no ERA. Did not give up a run.
Yeah, he didn't give up a run for a while.
Yeah, 4 2/3. His third start, he had 3 hits, 4 strikeouts, 4 walks, no runs. He did not give up a run until his 5th start. And that start, the Yankees actually won. He pitched 6 innings. It was a no decision, 7 hits, 5 earned runs, 1 walk, 8 strikeouts. He gave up 3 home runs. And then his last game that he started in 2021, 4 1/3, 3 runs, only 2 earned runs, 3 hits, 4 walks, 6 strikeouts, a home run, a hit by pitch, finishing 3.07 ERA on the year. Now, I'm not even going to talk about, the following season because, I mean, he got hurt and, wasn't even the same. But the good thing is, Gary, is that you're talking about a guy who is 25 years old, right? Talking about a guy who's 25 years old, and he in spring training isn't showing anything that's out of left field, essentially. Like what we're seeing in spring training is kind of like what we should be seeing if he didn't get hurt. We should be seeing, he's on the right path. He's on the trajectory. You want to see those walks cut down for sure. Which I would say he's doing his best. I mean, he has 6 walks in 15 innings. It's not the greatest, 15 2/3, but it's not the worst either. I would like to see him cut down the walks. But I think the strikeouts are there, 23 and 15 2/3.
Can I defend him here a little bit?
Yeah.
Last thing I'm going to say about Gil. I have to defend him. Just last thing.
Yeah.
We talk about Blake Snell. Blake Snell was asking for $200 million, and rightfully so. He pitched fantastic. He was great last year. Okay. And in large part because he was missing bats. His curveball was devastating last year. His slider, whatever you want to call it, absolutely wipe out. Okay. He was pitching up in the zone. He was hitting spots. He was dominant. But Blake Snell walked a shit ton of guys. He walked guys every day. If you watch Blake Snell pitch, he would go 10 Ks, shutout, and he would have 6 walks, and he'd throw 118 pitches. That's the way he pitched. And this is what I'll say about it. Blake Snell did that. That was his game plan. It's not that Blake Snell doesn't know how to throw strikes. He does. Blake Snell was walking guys strategically. He'd say, okay, I'm seeing your 3 or 4 hitter. There's 2 outs, nobody on. I'll walk that guy. I'll walk the next guy. I'll pitch to your 6 hitter. I've got enough confidence I can punch him out and get off the field. So when I'm looking at Luis Gil and I compare it to guys that we consider high-priced pitchers in Major League Baseball, a walk is not always the worst thing in the world. It's run prevention. That's the game. The whole point of Major League Baseball is you put a guy on the mound, you put fielders out there in the field, and it's a game of run prevention and run creation. Luis Gil has an incredible ability to prevent runs from being scored. That's his job. Could he improve on the walks? Absolutely. Would I like to see it? 100%. But do I expect every pitcher who has control issues to just be able to work on it and then suddenly he's Clayton Kershaw, he's hitting corners? No, I don't think so. It should probably improve somewhat over time, and luckily he's 25 years old, so that probably can happen. But even if it doesn't, his stuff's going to play for the Yankees, and I'm all aboard.
Yeah, and I mean, going back to 2021, per Fangraphs, I mean, his slider, 24 strikeouts. I mean, that's pretty crazy when you think about it. He had 8 strikeouts or 28 strikeouts, with his slider between 2021 and 2022. He had 13 with his fastball. I think I'll say this, Gary. I think he is going to end up being kind of he's going to make the Yankees the ones that laugh last, essentially. Because I think a lot of people, and maybe we even got involved in it, like, oh, you got to go and get Blake Snell. And the Yankees stuck to their guns, and they did not get him. And they decided to go with the kid coming off of Tommy John. I mean, I think the Yankees, deserve credit if this works out big time.
And I think it's going to work out. Like, okay, so if Gil works out, which you think it will, right? You're buying into that. I'm buying into it. It leaves Schmidt, once Cole comes back, as the odd man out. Not a bad thing. It's a good thing.
No, it's not bad.
So what happens to Clayton Beeter, who, by the way, Clayton Beeter, and he was one of our topics for today,
Yeah,
made the team,
he
which
did
is
make the
awesome.
team.
He pitched phenomenal last year in Double-A. So that's a great thing. But where does it leave him? Does it leave him in Luis Gil's spot of 2 years ago, or I guess we should say 3 years ago for Luis Gil before his injury, where he was giving us some opening performances? Maybe a guy goes down, he fills in. What is the role for Clayton Beeter?
Well, I think you have to start with Clark Schmidt. Bring him up first. Clark Schmidt, when they drafted him, was never this super sexy pickup, right? He was kind of that straight ahead, really solid, potentially a third starter in the rotation guy at max, right? So he's turned out to be just about what they thought he would be. Maybe they thought he'd be a little bit better, but maybe they're probably kidding themselves, in that sense. I mean, that he is what he is. That to me is a guy who's most equipped to go into the bullpen. But I don't think that has to take over Clayton Beeter's role, because I think with Beeter, they look at him as potentially Michael King 2.0. I think it's why that they were okay trading Michael King, because anyone will tell you, I mean, the Yankees could have made the trade for Juan Soto without including Michael King. There would have been a way to do it. They would have had to give up Will Warren, but they could have done it. They would have had to give up a guy like Chase Hampton. They could have done it. They would not have given up Michael King, how important he was for them. They would not have given him up if they didn't believe that they had something that could be replicant.
They knew they had a solution to the problem that they were creating. Which, I mean, it's like the iPhone, right? Getting rid of the home button. And then you're like, well, where's my fingerprint going to go? And then they tell you, oh, yeah, the scanner is going to read your eyes now. So anyone that makes a decision, for the most part, you're like, why would we trade that guy? Chances are high, to Jake's point, they view someone else as filling those shoes. Maybe it's not to the same level, or maybe it is. But even if it isn't, the team's making a decision that they don't just make a trade and get rid of a guy and they have no one to step in. That's not usually how people do business, and I don't think it's how Brian did this.
No, not at all. I think they really knew ahead of time. Beeter's the guy that they really targeted when he was on the Dodgers. They got him for Joey Gallo. Like, we can't forget about that.
That was a great move. So credit where it's due. It couldn't be better.
Fantastic. I mean, the guys you gave up for Joey Gallo, not so great. But once you've already made a bad decision, you don't want to double down and try to beat the bad decision, right? What's bad is bad, right? It's like chasing the win that you don't have. Like, you lost and now you're like, well, I need my money back. Like, especially in like gambling. And it's like, with Clayton Beeter, you're just making the best at it. You're cutting your losses, but you're getting something in return, which is not always the case in this league. It's not always the case in any sports league. So to turn Joey Gallo, who Michael K called the worst 500 at bats in Yankee history, to turn that into a guy that could potentially not only be really helpful in your bullpen, but could potentially start down the road and, replace a guy like Michael King, that is huge to me. So I look at Beeter as somebody that I think he is going to be very good in that bullpen. And it won't be him or Schmidt when it comes down to it, or Gil. Like, Gil could definitely move down in the bullpen as well. They could just roll with Schmidt. I tend to think that Gil has more to offer. He's younger. I think Schmidt would be pushed to the bullpen, but I think with Beeter, it doesn't have to be either or. Bullpen is the way the Yankees use the bullpen. It's not like it was back when, we had MLB 2K5 and you had your two setup men, you had your closer, you had a middle reliever, a long reliever. You wouldn't use everybody, right? Like, some guys you would never use. Well, now I kind
of miss those days.
I know. Well, now they use them all the time. I think they overuse them. Okay. I know a lot of people would say I'm out of touch with baseball in that regard. I think the bullpens are used irresponsibly nowadays. I think it's why you get to October and these guys are exhausted because they've all pitched so many innings. But they're not stopping how they do things, right? They're not going to change how they do things. This is the Yankees. And since it's the Yankees, means Clayton Beeter has a shot to be one of the premier guys in the bullpen. Ron Marinaccio is not on this roster. Okay. That's a big deal. Beeter has taken over Ron Marinaccio's spot. I don't think anyone's talking about that.
What's funny is I didn't like watching him pitch at all. I don't know what it was. I felt like I was watching Adam Ottavino, and I know Adam Ottavino had some pretty successful outings for the Yankees, but it was almost like a game of tunneling. And for those of you who have pitched, tunneling is essentially starting two pitches in the same spot, and they end up in two different locations. And watching Adam Ottavino pitch was like watching someone always try to fool somebody, and I didn't like it. I felt like it had very little to do with command and knowing where you're throwing the ball versus fooling somebody. So it almost felt like kind of like a puzzle. Didn't like it. But Clayton Beeter, I have to bring up this stat about him. Okay.
Yeah.
Jake's high on him. I might be even higher on the guy. Okay. This is a real stat in AA last year. Now, mind you, the ball flies in AA baseball.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. His ERA was 2.08, right? And that could be a loaded answer, a loaded statistic, could mean everything, could mean nothing. So we won't stop there. We're not going to read too much into his ERA, which, by the way, that's very good. Okay. He threw 60 2/3 of an inning. He gave up, this is the stat that I wanted to talk about, less than half of a home run per 9 innings. Do you know how good that is? We watch Carlos Rodon, who, by the way, I predicted would be fantastic this year. When he gives up home runs, hell, even Garrett Cole, when he gives up home runs, that's the way they give up their runs. Clayton Beeter is not doing that. Clayton Beeter eventually is going to be pitching in Yankee Stadium in a park where it's very difficult to not give up home runs. And he's giving up less than half of a home run per 9 innings. That's how good he's going to be. And what I wonder, and you're saying that he could replace Michael King, and I kind of agree with you, is if the Yankees will even want to do that. Because if you have a guy who's potentially dominant, the Yankees might use him, especially as young as he is, and put him in the rotation as potentially moving him up the rotation and being a quality arm. Because you have to remember, if you look around Major League Baseball, not everyone has to be Garrett Cole to be a 3-starter in baseball. Look around. If you can control how many people can get on base, if you can create strikeouts, if you can potentially prevent walks, if you're ultimately, and Clayton Beeter's already doing it, preventing runs altogether. If you're preventing runs at all with any type of regularity, and Juan Soto and Aaron Judge and hopefully a healthy Anthony Rizzo, Gleyber Torres, Volpe are in the lineup, you're winning games. So I'm not going to, and I know you're not giving up on it, but no, I'm looking at Clayton Beeter as being a middle of the rotation arm long term. That's what I'm looking at. And that could potentially be so helpful for what happened with Luis Severino. Last thing I'll say, we lost Luis Severino. No one expected him to be gone. If you asked somebody 4 years ago where you'd think Luis Severino would be, you would assume he was starting game 2 behind Garrett Cole. That's what you would expect. And so now that that's not happening, anyone that's having success and pitching big innings, I have to at least give them the opportunity to earn these spots that we thought Sevy would be in.
Yeah, I agree, man. 100%. I think, and I mean, we've had conversations about this before. I am a diehard fan of when you have something in the rotation, you have somebody that can pitch 6 innings, not just throwing them in the bullpen. Like, I don't even know if this is the right way to use Clayton Beeter. Okay. I don't know if he and Gil aren't better options than Schmidt. I don't know. My thing is, though, Beeter can work in the pen, get confidence, and then be built up very similarly to Michael King into the rotation. He already has starting experience. I think it's going to be an easy transition. I think the Yankees' depth in the bullpen. And we don't know exactly what it's going to look like. There'll probably be moves, very minor moves between here and, opening day against the Astros. But I mean, you look at the bullpen right now. You got Beeter, you got Caleb Ferguson, Victor Gonzalez, Ian Hamilton. No one talks about. I think he's an absolute stud. Okay. He was really good last year. Got hurt. But again, it's one of those, well, they weren't very good last year and a lot of people stopped watching. So poor Ian Hamilton didn't really get the respect that he deserves. Tommy Kahnle. Okay. Well, what's going to happen with him? I mean, we've seen him when he's at his best. He's really good. Loizaga, Clay Holmes, McKinley Moore. So I think, Luke Weaver as well. And then, of course, Cody Poteet, who was sent down. They could bring up Will Warren. They have ammo. I think they are probably going to trade for another bullpen guy mid-season.
Okay.
That's kind of what I think. I think the way that they have kind of changed their fortunes, and they've given guys like Gil a shot. It kind of tells me that when Cole comes back, they're going to look at this as kind of a logjam, and it's a good problem to have. But I don't see this team trading for a pitcher at the deadline like I initially thought. I do think they're going to go heavy on the bullpen. So whoever isn't dominant, like if some of these guys step up in a big way, like Victor Gonzalez was a trade, right? He and Caleb Ferguson came over from the Dodgers. So they, on two guys that they had pinpointed as guys that they wanted. Same thing with your beat Vivas, a guy to keep an eye on. Maybe he works his way into the infield.
I can tell how much you care about pronunciation. I would never even try to say that name.
Yeah, I know. So, I just think end of the day, man, good bullpen, looks good on paper, has a chance to be really good. And I think that this is not a team, they can be all in. Okay. They can still be all in if they really believe in what they have. And we've talked about it. They have guys like Cortez who, okay, maybe he didn't look the best last year, but he's going to be better this year. And Rodon, he's not going to have a 7 ERA this year. He might not be amazing.
We know he's going to be better. I don't even know if it's possible to be worse.
Stroman,
it was just terrible.
I mean, Stroman just pitched a great game. It was against the Mets.
Yeah.
Stroman, he's going to sneak up on you as well. And then you have Schmidt playing, solid baseball, pitching at, solid clip, nothing too crazy. He doesn't have to be the big strikeout guy. That's not who he is, but he can get outs. Then you have Gil. Then you have Beeter, and all of a sudden Cole's back, and we'll sit there and be like, this team is still above 500 and Cole's back. And, they've already seen, because they decided not to be the typical all-in team, what doesn't kill you indeed makes you stronger. And if they are above 500 when Cole is back and they're in the race, and they're going to be in the race because, the season won't end by the time Cole comes back. But let's just say they're above 500 and Cole is back. You've now learned all this about these pitchers that you would not have learned had you just gone out and gotten a Blake Snell, had you just gone out and traded for somebody. Okay. And that is why I'm not always team trade for the big guy. And even in times of being all in means that you're trying to win a World Series and do everything in your power to do so. And as crazy as it sounds, I know a lot of Yankees Twitter won't understand this, but they might feel like the best way to win a World Series is to keep these guys intact, get these guys opportunities, and evaluate at the deadline.
Which we honestly did say consistently about Austin Wells. If we had traded for a catcher, because we had said maybe this catcher's room is a little weak, maybe we don't believe in the guys that are in there, perhaps we can go make a move. But the drawback to that, which we both brought up, is that you never find out what you have in Austin Wells. You never figure that out.
Exactly.
If you ever thought that there was an opportunity to find a Jorge Posada or find a Bernie Williams, find a Derek Jeter, the only way to do that is to allow those guys to play. That has to happen. There's the prerequisite to being a star and being a lasting star in baseball to the point where you can create a dynasty, which is what we're hoping to do, right? We're not close, but we're hoping to do that.
Yeah.
Those guys have to play. Trading for the superstar, if you can do it, awesome, all the power to you. But sometimes you do have to develop. And in these situations where you look around at the catchers and you look around at the 3, 4, and 5 starters and you say, God, I don't really know what I'm going to get out of this guy, but we might do this with a couple of these young guys in Gil, in Beeter. Well, if a couple of those guys can pan out, if a Spencer Jones can pan out, Dominguez will pan out. When those things are starting to transpire, that's the only way to sustainable success if you're the Yankees. I know you can spend $300 million. That's all great. It might help you in 1 year as opposed to another. But if you want to be elite in 2024, you want to be elite in 2025 all the way through 2030. If you want that to happen, these guys have to perform. You can't always just acquire the next sexy pickup and then expect it to work in 2 years. And I've been a person who have always said, why care about 2 years from now if you can care about today? And I still believe that somewhat, but you can't make moves that make you great right now and just ass in 2 years. You have to at least somewhat be cognizant about what you're doing and who's coming next and who's filling those shoes for, say, a DJ LeMahieu that is now 35 years old. Where do we come up with those answers? You can't just go pick up now the best second baseman in baseball and just plug him in at second. It doesn't work that way. So, yeah, the Yankees are in a situation where sometimes you need to be patient in situations where injuries or lack of performance makes you impatient. And that's the hard part about this sport is it takes so long to get through a season. It's not like the NFL where there's 17 weeks and then you just mop them off the field. No, we're going to watch 162 games of something that potentially we don't like to see. So there's a lot at stake. And that brings us to our next topic, which I just brought it up, which was DJ LeMahieu. He's starting the season on the IL. Oswaldo Cabrera is the favorite to take over his spot. How are you feeling about Cabrera filling in? Because I don't feel as highly as I think some other people do. Maybe they don't. But I want to know what you think about him.
Well, he's somebody that they brought up, when I was begging them to bring up the kids in 2022. And I mean, he carved out a pretty decent, year, I guess. Only played 44 games, but, he had some big time plays in the field, big time at bats, working the count. I think the biggest concern is, the bat to ball ratio. I mean, I think, when it's him, he's always going for the big hit. And I understand, but you have to be in the moment. And I think there are times where he's chasing and he doesn't even have to chase. And I think, really that was on full display in my opinion, in the playoffs. I just think it looked too big for him in 2022.
I tend to agree. It was almost like he was trying to play like an Ozzy Albies, if that makes sense, where he's playing bigger than his stature. And I think that put him into some bad habits. I think Volpe, again, he was kind of in that same situation, uppercut swing. You look at Anthony Volpe. Anthony Volpe was built more like a guy who could be a hybrid power contact bat, right? Like a Trey Turner. But when you look at Oswaldo Cabrera, I don't see a build of a guy who can consistently do damage offensively. I mean, just looking at his numbers on the surface level, I mean, I don't know. Looking at his numbers, he walked last year. I got to check this out. Last year, Oswaldo Cabrera walked 25 times. Okay.
In 115 games.
In 330 plate appearances. That can't possibly be a method of success. And he has to know that. To not understand, and I get that walking is not just a matter of just standing there. It requires you to, like, for one, you're putting balls in play with authority. So now you're changing the way you're being pitched. But having said that, You can't strike out 65, 70 times in a year, walk 25 times, and then you went up there for more than half the season. That is just not a recipe for success. And not only that, it's redundant. We've seen it plenty of times. I saw it with Luke Voigt. We saw it with plenty of players. We've seen it with guys where you come up, they have a certain mentality going through the minor leagues or with another organization. They have somewhat of success. We bring them in and they change their mentality of how they're going to go about their business at the plate. It doesn't work. Anthony Volpe is making that adjustment this year. He's flattening out his swing. He's trying to make a more well-rounded approach to baseball, and it's going to work. I know it will. But when you're looking at Cabrera, it seems like an identity crisis where he's trying to put the ball in the seats. He's got power. He needs to let it go to him. He needs to play baseball and be an all-around player. And if the ball goes out of the ballpark, it goes out of the ballpark. You don't need to try and force the issue. And I think he was doing exactly that last year, and it didn't work.
So I agree with you. My issue is like with Gil, he's pitching really well, right? You're feeling good about him coming out of spring training, right? I mean, Oswaldo Cabrera it's not like he's playing well. He had a home run. Social media went crazy about it. He's hitting what, 213, 217, around that. I would rather give Jahmai Jones a shot. Okay. Who is also on the roster. He's had 28 ABs and he's batting 286. I'd rather give him a shot personally. Either way, this just goes to show you, it brings it all back to the Yankees are thin at third base because Oswald Peraza got hurt and he's going to be potentially out for the year. DJ LeMahieu is old and was showing signs of this beforehand. And they let Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, the only reason that trade wasn't the worst thing ever, and it's still a pretty awful trade.
Terrible.
They let IKF walk and go to a rival team when he was a Gold Glove third baseman, Gary. And I think he started maybe 10 games there in his career on the Yankees. They tried to turn him into a shortstop. It is one of the most head-scratching, personnel decisions I think I've ever seen in any sport.
So they can make room for Josh Donaldson at third base. What were we doing?
Like, I'm trying to think of like an example for people that may be more into another sport. I mean, you can't even that's like
trading for Lamar Jackson and then splitting him out wide as your wide receiver. That's essentially what happened. And I get it. They're not at the same level.
Yeah.
But Isaiah Kiner-Falefa,
yeah.
Isaiah Kiner-Falefa very clearly was elite at two things: bat to ball contact. He was a contact first bat. So the fit was there just in terms of that. Fielding, he was a Gold Glove third baseman. Okay. Essentially was like the Yankees saying, oh, wow, we've got a Gold Glove or Platinum Glove third baseman in Matt Chapman. Let's acquire Matt Chapman. And then them saying, well, we have Anthony Volpe. What are we going to do about that? Well, we'll just put Matt Chapman at shortstop. Why? Well, he was a lead over there at third base. So, and obviously there's a lot of shifting in Major League Baseball. So surely he can do it, right? Well, no, he's got to make the throw from shortstop. Remember watching IKF make throws from shortstop? He couldn't do it, could he? Because the throw is different. You know this. I know this. Everybody else in Major League Baseball knows this.
That's why I played
except
second.
For the Yankees, apparently. The Yankees apparently didn't know this. It is a further throw for people who don't watch baseball from shortstop to third base. It's further. And not to mention the fact you have much less time throwing the ball from shortstop. You're way deeper in the field. It's a much harder throw for fielders. So it just didn't work at all. And getting rid of him, and by the way, online, this is exactly why I was told that the Yankees shouldn't have gotten IKF. They told me, well, they gave him $15 million. Okay. And according to where the Yankees' current payroll stands, that would have been equivalent to spending $30 million. Now, why would I care about that? The New York Yankees have a need. That need, and if we're being honest, DJ LeMahieu is 35 years old. Expecting consistency and longevity from a 35-year-old asset is just nonsensical. It doesn't happen. This is not the NBA. This is not quarterback in the NFL. This is real life Major League Baseball, a grueling season that baseball is. You can expect DJ LeMahieu to have highs this year in 2024, and I expect him to. He had a great finish to last year, but to expect him to play 155 games, I don't think anyone would have expected that. So what it means is that the Yankees had a hole at utility. That's what they had. So if the Yankees have more money than any other team in Major League Baseball, I expected them to spend it. Maybe not on a $200 million pitcher and Blake Snell or whatever you expected them to spend on him, but to bring in somebody that could fill that utility role and play where they won Gold Gloves, do what they do best. And me and Jake, I believe, both agree the Yankees essentially made a perfect fit last year, poor, by putting him in a bad position. And then finally they had a perfect spot to put him and didn't use him. Why?
It's so frustrating. I just went through while you were talking. I was also listening. But I went through while you were talking the top 30 prospects in the Yankees farm system right now. And Tyler Hardman is the only third base prospect, and he is 27th. And they guess what? The Yankees just moved him last year to the hot corner. Like, that tells me there's almost like a lack of preparation for the future there. They were like hoping
the Yankees are pretending they have a bunch of shortstops.
I mean, it seems that way. I mean, I've heard that Arias could be that, but I heard Arias was so good that when he comes up, they might move Volpe to third base. But I hear a lot of things, and I just laugh kind of because Arias has an ETA of 2027. We have no idea what to make of Roderick Arias, who, by the way, 2027.
Good
because,
Lord.
Well, think about it, right? He's 19 years old. He'll be 20 in September, and he's still in rookie ball. Like, I love these prospects, right? I love the idea of developing them, but I think far too often we overlook these guys are in rookie ball, man. That's completely
rookie ball.
He's in rookie ball. He's the third prospect now.
Rookie ball. the dude's got on diapers. He's not even close to helping the Yankees.
No, like you
come on.
And like, well, you know how it is. You stay on the internet too long and you hear stuff like that. And it's like, I don't even know. I mean, the best option for the Yankees, the best option is to go out and get somebody for third. And this is coming from a prospect hugger. There is not anyone on the roster that you can count on. Assuming LeMahieu even comes back, who's to say he doesn't have multiple setbacks? This doesn't become an issue all year, like you said, and like we've all said, and we've been talking about this on this show. LeMahieu is older. Okay, it was really nice to find those years. That was a gem, a hidden gem. People were sleeping on the guy. Cashman got the last laugh. But the fact of the matter is this: you didn't get him young. Okay, at some point or another, there's not going to be any more high quality baseball being played by him. And you can't give me, oh, well, he had a really good end to last year. Yeah, that's great. That's all fine and dandy. Really,
and
when
everyone
it comes
plays
down
well
to,
at some point.
Yeah, I mean, it's 162 games, and these guys are professional baseball players. Gary, you figure it out. Like, I mean, come on. Like, let's be honest here. Anyone in MLB can have a good game at any given point. They can have a good week. Yeah. I mean, remember when like Tino Martinez had like 13 home runs in the first week of the season, and then he didn't hit another home run the rest of the year?
Yeah, you remember when Greg Allen looked like Tino Martinez for like a couple weeks as a Yankee? It happens, guys. These guys are professionals. No one sucks. Okay, I'm here to tell you right now. As much as people say it, nobody sucks in baseball. If you put every single player that you see in Major League Baseball if you put them out there for 162 games, there's going to be a week where you go, this dude's it. This is what we've been waiting for. And then you're going to look at the stats at the end of the year and be like, God damn, he sucked. But he didn't really suck. He's not a bad baseball player. It's just that it takes a really high quality baseball player to have any consistency at this level. It just happens. So yeah, no, it doesn't really matter that DJ LeMahieu finished strong last year. I'm just trying to extend an olive branch. But my expectation is that he's 35. He's not going to be a long-term asset for the Yankees in 2024. He's a guy who will play well periodically, just like I said Giancarlo Stanton would. So the Yankees need to make sure they're putting themselves in position to succeed.
I agree. And, I mentioned Vivas earlier. Wouldn't be surprised if he got a shot either. Second base, third baseman. That's what he's listed as. There's not just a straight up third baseman or anything like that, but just somebody to keep an eye on. I don't even think he's on the 40-man roster as right now, so there'd have to be a move. But I mean, you look in free agency, man, there's just not a lot there. You can look it up. Third base on Spotrac. All right. You got Evan Longoria. He's 38 years old. Now you're literally doing the same thing, even worse. So Longoria wouldn't be an option.
No, Justin Turner, who went to Toronto, he was the same type of pickup. It was
Josh
was going to be oh my gosh.
Can you imagine?
No, I'd cancel the show.
Gene Segura. Tyler Wade.
Tyler Wade I'd actually enjoy.
Tyler Wade's 29. I mean, it's
he's younger than me.
I mean, I see Justin Yurchak here. I went to school with him. I mean, there's all sorts of like these guys, but there's not anybody that I'm like, yeah, they're going to solve it. So, man, I hate to say it because, like I said, I am the prospect hugger, but the Rams. Look at the Rams thing in the background. The Yankees need to make a move, man, for a third baseman. I'm saying it with passion because I want to like Oswaldo Cabrera, but I don't feel good about the strikeout rate. I don't feel good about the lack of walks. I don't feel good about the bat to ball ratio. I don't feel good about Peraza as anything other than just a solid utility, backup guy that you're going to bring in. And I understand right now he is the backup, but to me, there are no backups before the season starts, right? Like these are your starters. Like say what you will. You didn't go into the season. These are your starters. You didn't go into the season with, okay, these are your starters. Then mid-season injury happened. I mean, it does happen, but not this scenario. This scenario, you are walking into the season, ready or not. These are your starters. And if you're okay trotting out Oswaldo Cabrera, you better be ready because I'm not a hater of his. I like him. I'm just kind of being a realist here. I'm not comfortable with him starting at third. I don't think it's a good move. I think you got Volpe, who's going to hit well, and he's going to have a turnaround season at shortstop. Glaber, who half of the fan base wanted gone, thank God they didn't do that, is going to look good at second base. Rizzo, I'm excited about in a sense because, before he got hurt, he looked really good. Austin Wells, I have as the catcher. I think he's going to have a really good year. 289 he's batting in spring training, which I like. Then, of course, you have the outfield. You got left fielder, Verdugo. He's going to get on base. He's going to, hit for average. He's going to, hit for contact. You feel good about him. Center, probably going to be Aaron Judge. And then, Soto and right. And then DH is going to be Stanton. Stanton has
Verdugo
had some
out and left. Yeah.
Stanton's had some moments. Then, I mean, after that, you have like a decent bunch of depth behind those guys, right? Because at that point, Dominguez will be back. You'll have to figure out that issue. That's a good issue to have, by the way. You want Dominguez to be back. Trent Grisham, good fielder, could come in, pinch hit, pinch field, whatever, all that. Jahmai Jones, does he make the roster? I don't know. Oswaldo Cabrera, if he was, a backup third baseman, I wouldn't mind that. And then, I mean, if Peraza does come back or not, who knows? DJ LeMahieu is probably not going to be out for the full year. Then you have, Trevino and Ben Rortvat behind Austin Wells. They have depth, Gary. It's not the best depth they've had. They don't have like a Miguel Cairo I'm like really excited about, right? But, dude, guy's so underrated. But
so underrated.
He's so underrated. Miguel Cairo, if they had Miguel Cairo right now at third base, back when he would hit like 280, the Yankees would be golden. I just don't think they have that. And so I'm just speaking on that now. People in the comments section, I'm sure somebody is going to be a huge fan of Cabrera. I like Cabrera. I like Pereira. I don't know if any of them are going to pan out. I think I trust Pereira more than I trust Cabrera. I trust Peraza more than I trust Cabrera when he comes back from injury. Cabrera just seems like that guy who you want to like, and I do like him, and he's got high energy, high all that, but the bigger picture here, we know how this thing works. We've seen those feel-good moments. We saw Melky Cabrera. We've seen guys like that. Jose Contreras is a good example. There are fan favorites that just aren't good enough to be in that spot.
No, they're not starters. I mean, just because, you wouldn't look at somebody. I don't know. It's hard to describe because you need to be a good player to be a good backup. But It's the same conversation as watching Raul Ibanez when he was just taking dudes tater tot in the postseason for the Yankees, and then turning around and be like, well, why doesn't he just bat third if he's going to be doing that?
Matt Carpenter.
Right. If he's going to be doing that, we're going to pinch hit Raul Ibanez for Alex Rodriguez. So why doesn't Raul Ibanez just hit third, right? It's obviously a dumb conversation to have because inherently we know he's not good enough to start anymore and be in that position. So we put him in his role and he needs to excel in that role. And this is the same conversation we're having at third base right now. We're basically having an argument of, is this guy good enough to play? The answer is yes. We have multiple guys who have depth at third base that are good enough to perform for the Yankees in some capacity. The problem is none of them are quality enough to lead a pennant race at third base you know how important third base is. You can't just have a guy who's good enough to be league average at third base and then go win a title. No, look at the teams that win titles. There's not going to be some ho-hum guy you don't recognize going and winning World Series. It doesn't happen. Okay. So the Yankees need to be very careful with just plugging and playing guys, and they need to be more diligent. So yeah, I agree with you, Jake. They got to make a move.
Yeah. It's weird, kind of a far cry from earlier in the show when, we first started pitcher and now we've kind of moved to third base, but this is also kind of a reminder that depth is great, but depth isn't like there's a finite number of guys that you could have. And sometimes these freak things happen. Sometimes you lose, Peraza. Sometimes you lose a 35-year-old who was injured last year. Actually, most of the time you lose that type of guy. And it backs you into a corner. And we've seen in the past them make trades before the season. I think this would be a good idea to do so. So, hope you guys enjoyed. It's been a fun episode. I'm Jake Ellenbogen. You can follow me at JK Bogan. He is Gary Sheffield Jr. You can follow him at Gary Sheffield Jr. on all social media. And we'll see you guys in the next episode. We are getting wicked close to the start of the season. Can't wait. Plenty of content coming your way. So we're not going anywhere.
Yeah, and like this video, if you can see how tan Jake is. He was in Florida for vacation.
You think I'm tan?
No, I was being sarcastic. Jake found a way to go to Florida and not get a tan. Pretty impressive stuff.
No, I just burned the hell out of my hand. You could totally tell like when the golf glove.
Oh my God. You're allergic to the sun.
Yeah, no, the sun is taking another prisoner.
Yeah, so like this video if you like Jake's non-existent tan. But no, we see, in all seriousness, no, we really appreciate you guys. Our turnout for the show has been fantastic. I have people who still message me about some of our first episodes that we release. And yeah, we're trying to figure out exactly how long to make these shows for you guys and what you guys are receptive to. So we're being cognizant of what we do, and we're going to continue to get better for you guys. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And one last thing, we'll be doing a giveaway with Game Changers, so keep an eye out for that. More information, on our Twitter accounts, so or X, whatever you call it. So definitely check that out as well. And that's a wrap. We'll see you guys.